Welcome back to Route 1 Football, the preview show brought to you by Star Sports. In today's episode, we're going to be talking all about Premier League MVPs. And to do that with me, I have two very special guests, Alex Crook and Robbie Savage. Now, Premier League MVPs, you probably don't know too much about that, Robbie, do you? Because
Oh, wow.
Straight in.
if you're going to be looking at the main contenders, we have to start with Manchester City. Obviously, there's some standout names there, Erling Haaland being the main one. Is he going to be your MVP this season, do you think?
Well, you're thinking how many goals. I don't think he'll better last season. That'll be really unbelievable if he does. You know, that season is quite incredible. I think if it's Kane, Salah, Rashford, Nunez, Jesus, and Nkunku, Watkins, you know, these teams are going to have to win the league. You know, so if you're looking at where the MVP will come from, it will have to be Man City. I thought Gundogan towards the end of last season, you know, challenged. I thought he was magnificent, but because of the goals Haaland scored, we all know centre forwards get paid the most. They cost the most because the most difficult thing to do is put the ball in the back of the net. And you think with Kovacic coming in, the amount of chances they'll create, you know, Gundogan's a huge loss, but I'm sure when the season started, they've got one or two more players in. They've got a great academy system. You know, look at James McAtee, went to Sheffield last year, Oscar Bob. You know, and their whole structure, their club, £120 million worth of talent they've sold to other clubs from their youth academy. So I'm sure we'll see one or two more, Cole Palmer, for example. So they've got such strength in depth.
Do you still think he'll get over 30 goals, though?
Yeah, 30 goals, because you can't. The amount of chances they create and the amount of possession they have. And just think, when he missed that chance in the game against Liverpool in the Community Shield, when he hit it over the bar, people saying, will he score 20 goals? So you've got to go with Haaland.
What about you, Alex? Is Erling Haaland the only name that's going to top that list?
Yeah, it'd be nice to try and find something different, but it's hard to see past Haaland. I agree with Robbie. I'm not sure he quite hit the goal scoring heights he did last season, but will he still win the Golden Boot? I think in all likelihood, yes. I mean, is that a record in terms of the shortest price for a Golden Boot winner going into a Premier League season? You look down the list, I think Darwin Núñez actually.
Who's going to come close to him?
I think Núñez got a bit of stick last season for the chances that he missed, but he was still acclimatising to the Premier League. I think the key for Liverpool is that he was getting himself in positions to miss those chances. So I think he could be right up there. Alex Isak, I think at Newcastle, is a wonderful technical player. Can he stay fit long enough? Will they create enough chances to get him in contention? And then you look at Ollie Watkins as well. Can he pick up this season where he left off last? Scored a lot of goals. He seemed to thrive once Danny Ings was sold, of being Villa's main man, being that number 9. It's a big season for Ollie Watkins because there's a European Championship place at stake potentially. So he could feature as well.
Who do you think is going to be that number 2 spot? What about Marcus Rashford? He had a really good season last year. Do you think he'll be able to continue that form with or without a new strike partner?
It depends if he plays him if United play him as a 9, then I think he'll get not as many goals as play on the left. I think they need a 9. Rashford as a 9, predominantly he plays off the left, cutting inside. You know, the runs from the left-hand side inside your fullback and in between the centre half and the fullback, it's hard to mark. You know, you look at Liverpool did it with their front three, how they'd, you know, inverted forwards really with the fullbacks on the outside. So if Rashford plays as a 9, I don't think he'll get as many goals as last season. But if they get a 9, Rashford, a 9, and whoever United decide to play on the right, I think he'll have a chance of getting up there.
Interesting to see Gabriel Jesus on that list because he isn't that out-and-out number 9, isn't he? Obviously had a lot of injury issues last season, but even when he came back, he wasn't banging in the goals. I still think that's a problem for Arsenal. Obviously, in a previous episode, I've tipped them to potentially win the league.
Really?
Do you think they'll bring in another striker?
I'm not sure. I think most of their budget's probably gone, to be honest. I think it will be Gabriel Jesus and Nketiah, maybe Kai Havertz in that false number 9, but I don't think we see the best of him there. So if you're looking for one weakness in the Arsenal team, I think that's it. So I certainly wouldn't be talking about Gabriel Jesus as a Golden Boot contender. They could go from midfield.
Who?
As they did last year. Martinelli, Saka, Ødegaard.
Right. So that's enough to win the league?
Potentially.
You need a goal scorer.
In the previous episode.
You do need a goal scorer.
We've got Gabriel Jesus there on that list, but when it comes to Arsenal's MVPs, do you think Bukayo Saka is more likely to be the best player in that team?
Yeah, I really do actually. He was a close second, I think, last season to Erling Haaland in terms of the Player of the Year. You had to give it to Haaland just because of the records that he was breaking, and Saka did fall away a bit at the end of the season when I think maybe Mikel Arteta was guilty of overusing him. But I think, as I've said for Ollie Watkins, big year for Saka going into the European Championships. Not that his place is under threat, but he's going to want to go there. Gareth Southgate will want him in Germany in tip-top form. And I think if Arsenal are to win the title for the first time in a couple of decades, he's going to be a key part of that.
He's just going to get better and better, though, isn't he, Robbie?
Yeah, Alex saying there about overusing him, but, you've got to play your best players. It's as simple as that. If
Didn't need to play him in the Europa League.
Well, saying that,
It's experience, though, I guess.
Saying that, they wouldn't win the Europa League, surely.
Wow.
So,
They didn't come close to doing that.
Yeah, but surely your best players want to play in those games. He's young enough. He's a brilliant player. Why would you not play your best players in the Europa League?
Because I think their priority should have been the Premier League there.
And yet they still fell
best chance
short.
in decades. Yeah, but did they fall short because players were jaded towards the end of the season?
Wouldn't it have been better to come second and win the Europa League?
Potentially, but they didn't.
Factually correct. So, but looking at other players, look at Trent Alexander-Arnold. That will he play in that midfield position, or will he start as a right back, going into that midfield area? Because we know his passing ability, set pieces, he could be a top assists. But for Liverpool will have to win the league for Trent Alexander-Arnold to be the best player. I think.
Do you think he'll stay in that new position? And if so, do you think he'll be the MVP, or do you think Mo Salah will pip him to the post?
If you start as a right back and then end up in it and you go into the inverted midfield player, listen, City have done it and done it extremely well. But what City have got, they cover the spaces well. Look at Liverpool, when Trent vacates that position, the recovery runs at times, because he gets criticised for his defensive responsibility. But, I'd rather focus on what he's brilliant at. And he is brilliant at delivery, dictating the pace of a game, long passes. And again, if Salah's to win the MVP, Liverpool are going to have to win the league. The amount of goals he gets is, but I just think the dynamic of the Liverpool's front three's changed. Firmino dropping in as a 9. It was Mane and Salah making those runs. For Salah to score, was it another over 20 goals again last season?
People said he had a poor season.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
And he was up there in assists as well.
So I think he'll be up there again, but I think for any Liverpool player to win the Player of the Year, Liverpool are going to have to win the league.
What about Newcastle? We haven't touched on them yet. MVP, we've got Callum Wilson there, obviously. Isak. Anyone else sneak into that?
I'm interested to see what Tonali can do in midfield. They spent a big percentage of their budget on him, and people who watch Serie A think he's going to be a really good addition to the Premier League. Harvey Barnes, as we mentioned already, good numbers in a poor Leicester side last season. So I think he's going to be a good addition. But if Isak can stay fit, speaking to Newcastle players, some of the stuff he does in training, it takes their breath away. So he could be a real one to watch.
The one I'm looking forward to watching this season, Mudryk from Chelsea. I think his pace, and you're looking at social media pictures, looks like he's got stronger. He looks like he's added strength to his game. His pace, got a goal in pre-season, a good goal. So, Mudryk, I'm really excited at him and Kunku. Again, this pace, the dynamic. If they can have that creativity in the middle of the park, that's why I think, I've said Chelsea to finish the top 4, and you think they'll win it.
Never going to live that down.
Until they win it.
I didn't say that, by the way. I did not say that.
In the green room.
What about Nicholas Jackson? He's, he's a player that has looked good in pre-season. Do you think he can be in amongst those MVP positions?
I think it depends how much game time he gets.
Do you think he'll get the game time?
I think they're still looking to strengthen the squad. And if they do, I think he'll probably fall down the pecking order. You'd say he's behind Nkunku anyway. They've got Armando Broja coming back to full fitness. You would have thought probably he would be ahead in the roster. But he's done well in pre-season, as you say. Maybe surprised a few people. He's raw. I mean, it can't happen every day that you go from almost joining Bournemouth in one transfer window to joining Chelsea the next. He's probably pinching himself. So why not take the opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look at the playmakers, the guys who are going to be in there with the assists. I mean, obviously, Kevin De Bruyne was the main man last season. Is he going to be able to replicate that form?
He's Robbie's pick, I'm sure.
Who, De Bruyne?
Yeah.
Yeah, I go for the favourites.
He goes for the obvious.
Yeah, I just go factually correct probably at the end of the season. When you two will be looking stupid, but never mind.
Oh, Mystic Savage over there.
You can't look beyond Kevin De Bruyne.
It's difficult.
Thing is, obviously the disappointment. Listen, they won the Champions League, but he went off again in that final. So he is an unbelievable player. Is he the best ever player? Is he the best midfield player ever to play in the Premier League? That's a great debate because you've got Scholesy, you've got Gerrard, you've got Lampard. But in terms of assists, the way he sees a pass and that delivery from the right-hand side when he whips it in front of the goalkeeper behind the back 3 or 4 with whatever the team decides is just quite remarkable. So I think Kevin De Bruyne, Guimaraes at Newcastle. I think if they're to have a good season, he's going to have to produce numbers. He's a brilliant player. I'm trying to think of somebody that's not on that list.
Are there going to be any surprises, do you think, Alex, that will sneak in and be MVPs for their particular club? In the top 6, perhaps? Anyone we haven't mentioned there?
Well, I'm just thinking in terms of assists, and I mentioned his numbers already in the previous episode. Moussa Diaby at Villa, got good numbers of assists for Leverkusen last season in the Bundesliga. So if he can make that step up, I think he could be an outside contender.
Top 6, though?
In terms of the top 6, I mean, Bruno Fernandes, he's on that list, and I think actually he's taken a lot of criticism, and maybe Manchester United's decision to make him the skipper, I think personally it was the right decision. I think he'll only improve and really step up as a result of wearing that armband. So I think he's going to be right up there. Mason Mount, I think, could have a good season for United as well.
What about Jack Grealish as well? He's had some summer, hasn't he?
Yeah. So
depends if he's recovered.
So Jack Grealish, the way City play, I'm quite into the way teams play. I speak to lots of sporting directors, and I've got decent contacts like Alex in the game, and the way they play. If you watch when Grealish gets the ball, people said, at Villa he would go and get the ball in a 6, in an 8, he'd go all over the place into the back 4. He's more restricted at City, and he stays over that left-hand side. But what he does when he gets the ball, if you watch it, he draws 2, 3, 4 players towards him. That opens space everywhere else. So maybe he won't get as many assists. But his effect on that team by drawing players, to him and open space for everybody else. It's quite fascinating when you watch City play and you're into the analytics of a game. I watch videos of how they do it, and you watch when he gets the ball. So maybe he won't be, that many goals or assists in that City team, but his effectiveness for the way they want to play, he is, for me, what a brilliant season he had.
Here's one for MVP, just quickly. Completely different type of player, but someone who could make a real impact.
Pau Torres.
No, I was going to say Declan Rice because...
Again?
Well, why not? Because, at West Ham, he was the same. He had to be all over the pitch, covering every blade of grass, fighting fires. But he'll be able to concentrate on his own game in this Arsenal team. Do you think perhaps he might be able to get that MVP spot?
I think if he can add something going forward, there's every chance, because his defensive capabilities and even his range of passing, without question, his attitude, his application... It's those numbers at the top end of the pitch, which I think will improve at Arsenal. So, yeah, it's a possibility for a dark horse. What about Diaz at Liverpool? Obviously, looked like he was going to be a real player when he first burst onto the scene, picked up that injury. Big season for him, I think.
Do you know what you mentioned? Sorry, Bianca. Well, when you mentioned Declan Rice, he's one player in modern day football you want to do well. You see videos now of players, not signing autographs, walking past with headphones on. The video of Declan Rice when he went to that young fan. It's something that you want Declan Rice to do well. Even though he plays for Arsenal, unless neither I support or don't support Arsenal. But when you see Declan Rice, whatever shirt he pulled on, you see him as a character, as a lad. You want him to do well.
Do West Ham fans wish him well at Arsenal?
Surely they do.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. We've got a lot to thank him for. So
he was brilliant, and
he's our captain.
Good character.
What he did for the club, it's fantastic. We briefly touched upon James Maddison earlier, perhaps getting in there amongst the numbers for assists and providing Harry Kane with the goals. Interestingly, though, no Son on this list. Why is that?
I think it's based on last season. He had a really poor campaign by his standards. I don't think he was ever quite fully fit, to be honest. He's played a lot of football internationally and for his club. He's been speaking himself this pre-season about the fact we're going to see a better Son. I think if we do, then yeah, he should be part of the conversation, because on his day he's a wonderfully talented player, but he needs to find his way once again.
I think a big decision for Ange Postecoglou is where he plays Maddison, because if you're looking at Spurs with front three, where it's Son, Kane, Kulusevski, where will Richarlison play? Kane likes to drop in as a 9, so if you put in Maddison as a 10, they're going to get in each other's way. So Maddison's, for me, is best when he starts in a wide position, drifts into a 10 and gets in between the lines. So it's going to be interesting the way Ange Postecoglou's, who's left Celtic with a star on the shirt to go and join Spurs.
He's got a lot of attacking options, actually, isn't he? When you think about Richarlison, Kulusevski, as we say, Son, Maddison, Kane, how do you shoehorn them all into the same team?
If Harry Kane does go, does Richarlison just step in, or do they look for someone else?
Well, this is the key. The timing is going to be the key. If Kane goes late in the window, then they might not have an alternative, and it might well be that Richarlison gets the nod as the number 9. He did it for Brazil during the World Cup. If he goes earlier in the window, you'd have thought that Tottenham would reinvest that cash and try and bring in another striker.
If you were Kane, would you go?
Yeah, I think so.
To where?
I think Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
It looks his only real.
If he does go, who is Tottenham's MVP then?
Probably Son, for the reason we just discussed.
Yeah.
I think a lot of pressure on his shoulders all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You don't think Kane should go to Bayern?
If it was me, Harry Kane, a lot of people are saying, will he stay at Spurs or in the Premier League and try and break Shearer's record, or will he go on? How do you define his career when he finishes? Is it being the Premier League's all-time record goal scorer, or do you define it with trophies? Listen, money's not going to be a problem for Harry Kane. He's going to be a very wealthy individual. The big thing is Champions League football and trophies. I won the 3-handle cup. I've won more than Harry Kane, believe it or not, Alex. So it's quite remarkable. I'm sitting here as a.
You've got all those records, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm just saying. I've won more than Harry
Trophy
Kane.
winner, 11 points on the table.
But nobody would sit
Most
here.
yellow cards of the season.
Nobody would sit here and say Robbie's won more trophies than Harry Kane in his career, would they?
No.
Do you mean? So, for me, I would go to Bayern Munich, Champions League football, win trophies, rather than break Alan Shearer's record. If he stays at Manchester, if he goes to Manchester United, then I think he's got a chance to win trophies and break Shearer's record.
Okay, let's look at outside the top 6 now. We've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin there. He's the best price of any striker in teams from the bottom half of the table. It depends if he stays fit.
Which is a big if.
It's a very big if. Are there any other names that you think might be able to sneak in there and be the MVPs for the Premier League?
Not from the bottom half, but I think it could be a big year for Evan Ferguson at Brighton. Obviously, his breakthrough year last season, a real powerhouse of a centre forward, bit of a throwback in some ways. He reminds me a little bit of Wayne Rooney in that his body is like fully grown, but he's still a teenager, and Rooney was very much like that. So I think if he can stay fit, he may well be the main man up front for Brighton. If they can get anywhere near where they did last season, I wouldn't rule him out as a sort of each way shout.
Brennan Johnson, Nottingham Forest.
Okay.
I know Alex has said Forest could finish 10th. So Brennan Johnson, the firepower they've got and how dynamic they are in the front four, if they do it with, if it's Alanga, Gibbs White, who's a very good player, Brennan Johnson, Awoniyi, that front four, especially away from home on the counter attack, it's got such good pace. Brennan Johnson, played for Wales as well. I know his dad very well, David Johnson, who I grew up with at Manchester United. He was a year below us. Had a good career. So Brennan Johnson, I think, could have another wonderful season. So
if you were a manager in the top 6, let's say, would Brennan Johnson probably be one of the only names that you'd have a look at in the bottom half of the table?
I think he'd be up there. I think he's a real talent. You got Morgan Gibbs White on that list in terms of assists. He's probably too short, but I think he's a player that when Forest paid all the money they did to sign him from Wolves, a lot of eyebrows were raised. But then you look at the role he played at the end of last season and at the Euros with the under-21s, I think he might be on the radar of some big clubs.
Okay, if we had to choose who the player of the year will be today, I think we're all agreed it's probably going to be Erling Haaland. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm going to take him off the table then. Who are we choosing to be the player of the year, for the coming season?
Well, I'm going to stick with my prediction that Arsenal could win the title. And if they do, I think Bukayo Saka is going to have a stellar year. So I'm going to put forward Bukayo Saka.
I think Manchester United will have a good season. Casemiro. I think
big price.
I think his influence on that side, we've seen it when he didn't perform. How, at Anfield, when they got, was it 7?
Yeah, don't remind me.
Yeah. We've seen it when he was out of the side. I think his influence on the side, and I think they need one more midfield player. But I think Casemiro we've seen the emergence of young Kobbie Mainoo as well at Manchester United. Early days for him, but watched Kobbie a lot. A fantastic prospect talent. So if Kobbie Mainoo can get a run of games, which will be very difficult, he could be a breakthrough player in the Premier League this season.
Young Player of the Year contender potentially.
He's got fantastic attributes, great people to learn off in that midfield area. But Casemiro, if United to have a good season, Casemiro's going to have to be hugely influential once again.
Any last minute shouts? Any surprises who might be able to get in there?
I don't think so. I think we're pretty much agreed on 3 of the top 4, and a lot of the names feature prominently on this. Interestingly, not too many Chelsea players on that list. If we're looking at them
considering they're going to win the title.
Well, you put them as title contenders. You put them in the top 4. I mean, if they are to do that,
but no Europe.
They haven't got Europe this season, so they'll be able to focus all of their efforts on the Premier League. They've also got a new player in Nkunku who might.
Is he the most likely if we're looking at a Player of the Year for Chelsea?
I mean, we haven't mentioned Phil Foden at all.
Forgotten man for Man City at the end of last season.
Any of the episodes so far. Why is that?
Well, I just think the rotation in Man City side, you look at Mahrez, look how good he was for large parts of the season, but didn't start the FA Cup final or the Champions League final. So Phil Foden, unbelievable player. What a player he is. But, will he play enough games, to be up there with the best player in the league? If he played every single game, I think it would be an opportunity. But I just think that the rotation in Man City's team will mean that he won't be up there in terms of the best players in the league. It'll be brilliant, but I just don't think he'll play enough games because of the rotation, because of the quality they've got.
We've said that Bukayo Saka is probably going to be Arsenal's MVP. Who runs him a close second, Odegaard or Martinelli? I'm
looking at Martinelli, actually, because I think when they were on song last season, he was a big part of that. Wonderful technique, eye for goal, gets plenty of assists as well. So he's in a similar sort of price bracket as Casemiro. If you're looking away from Saka, maybe he's got a chance. Declan Rice is there as well. Obviously, we talked about his qualities and his potential to improve. So I think there's a few Arsenal players who could be contenders.
Lots of contenders to come a close second MVP in the Premier League this season, but it looks like it's Erling Haaland's to lose. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you on the next episode of Route 1 Football.